There are very few games that I would say changed my life, but this is one of them. Stepping into this world for the first time on my friend's headset single-handedly convinced me that I needed to buy a VR headset. I had never been so immersed in a video game in my life, and this wasn't even a franchise I knew about. I had heard of Half-Life before, but man, the visuals, the world design, just the detail in every space and every location, the way the physics worked, how it all worked together seamlessly in the effortless blending between cutscenes, gameplay, exploration, and every other system. I had never played a game like this, and it just left me in awe. This was the step forward in video games that I didn't even know existed. This was the pinnacle of game design, and Half-Life Alyx instantly entered my top 5 games of all time. But it's also nearly been 5 years since then, and I'm still wondering, will there ever be another game like it in VR? And with that, this is how Half-Life Alyx ruined VR by being a masterpiece. VR is a medium that has always been the weird black sheep of video games. You got the big 2 consoles, then you got PC for the graphic nerds, and then you have the Switch for families and people that actually like playing good video games. And then in the corner doing who knows what is Meta, Valve, and HTC. So VR is always viewed as the auxiliary to those other consoles. VR has always been the most niche of the main platforms of video games because for most games, Quest not included, you need to have a gaming PC and then a $300 to $1,000 headset so you can play it in VR as well. That barrier of entry is just so much higher price-wise for most gamers and normal people that it makes the install base for a AAA VR game so much smaller than say an exclusive for say the Switch or the PS5 or even the Xbox, I guess, but that poor thing hasn't seen an exclusive since I don't know, when did Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts come out? And also the exclusive and mainline games you're getting on a VR system are not going to be on the same level as a AAA game due to there just being a lack of development time with the medium. So if you're going to end up picking a console, you're probably going to end up picking one of those other 3. But VR is so incredible. With what it compromises in polish and makes up for immersion and the novelty of VR, and the player base fully understands that these smaller teams are working tirelessly in a relatively new medium, and they're creating so many great, incredible boundary-pushing games with the limited resources that they have. And also it's easy to forget that the medium's only been really around for the last 10 years, and it's incredible how quickly and how far the medium has come. But the lack of a huge player base doesn't incentivize huge teams to create AAA games for a more niche console platform. You would really have to be a company with an indisposable amount of cash and time and resources to really make a AAA game and really have too much time, and oh my goodness. Valve is the developers of Half-Life Alyx. They're also a billion-dollar company that owns Steam. They also created the VR headset, the Valve Index, which at the time was the top-of-the-line VR headset. So they not only had the money to develop and create this game, but they also had the money to research, figure out how to make VR physically playable and smooth for the average person to play. They were able to go over all those speed bumps and troubleshoot that all before, and be able to right out of the gates put out the best game ever made for the platform. Half-Life Alyx is the most expensive and well-polished test run you will ever see of a video game because, bizarrely enough, this was almost viewed as a test run for VR for Valve. And that led to the most flawless implementation of physics and interactivity in VR due to years of in-house research, development, and design, which puts them years ahead of all the other studios which just simply lack all of that information and research. Half-Life Alyx is a masterpiece because only Valve could have made it. Only Valve could have figured out the gravity gloves and how creating an in-universe way to grab things removes the nuisance of bending over constantly in VR. Only Valve had the money for the incredible motion capture animations of all these characters, or figuring out the refined, incredible gunplay, or the world design, or the creature, or how exploration works in VR. This level of polish and design and lack of crunch is just so high of a bar that no other VR studio has been able to recreate it with their games. It's just unfair. Imagine during the N64 era when we're starting to get all of our first 3D games and you're like, oh, Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, these are great and groundbreaking, and boom, Red Dead 2 drops out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden I'm back playing Pilot Wings. What happened? The incredible quality and insane level of detail and incredible game that was here with Half-Life Alyx isn't a bad thing. If anything, it shows the power and promise that VR had to offer when it's at its best. And honestly, it's incredible how good of a game it is because it shows that one game, just as usual, can sell a system. This is one of the best games ever, so it easily sells its 10 to 15 hour runtime and makes it worth the investment if you're gonna get a VR headset just for this game. Because as much as I love this game and think it's worth getting a VR headset to play it, VR can't survive off of one game that came out 4 years ago. I think VR though has a bright future, but it desperately needs more games of this quality. Metro VR and Arkham Shadow are great steps for bringing VR back into the public light and showing how big budget games can succeed in the AAA space. But still, nothing comes close to my opinion to this masterpiece of a game, visually, on a gameplay level, and there's not been a game that I think has matched its true quality in the VR space, and it's 4 years old now. VR to me is the biggest untapped potential spot for video games. Like that leap from the SNES to N64, that is what I felt like when I was going from my Xbox One to then strapping on a VR headset and playing Half-Life Alyx. This truly feels like the next step in evolution in video games. That jump that gamers are mourning with the smallest jump from PS4 to PS5 is sitting right there untapped and they just don't know it. Every time I play a VR game, I think about this 5-star hotel in the corner. This game is my Moby Dick. I cannot stop thinking about it. These games are a once in a generation, I know that, but there has never been a game this good, and it seems like we'll never get a game like this again. But I do think there's one game left that could usurp Half-Life Alyx and become a masterpiece for the ages. A game that could bring back VR to the forefront, and that game is Half-Life 3. And saying that out loud is exactly why Half-Life Alyx ruined VR for me, because now it's got me waiting for Half-Life 3 like everyone else from 2004. Anyways, this game is a masterpiece. Go play it. Sell your kid's kidney for it. It's worth it. I'll see you guys later.